on page 3, we've got problem number 10, and we are told to use the formulas from our notes to solve the following problems. So remember, you'll get the you'll get the formulas on your test, but you are responsible for knowing what each one stands for. But for now, since we're doing review problems, you can have your notes handy. So in problem number 10A, we know that we traveled for 4 hours at 65 miles per hour. How far did you travel? We are going to use our formula of distance equals rate times time. How far did you travel? We're asked to find our distance. We know we traveled for 4 hours. That must be our time. 65 miles per hour, that's our rate because it's a speed. And so speed and rate are interchangeable. They're the same thing. So our distance is going to be equal to 65 miles per hour times 4 hours. And all you have to do is multiply. Plugging that into our calculator, we find that our total distance is 260. If it's a distance, our unit is going to be miles. 10B, we're asked about temperature, and we're wanting to know about Celsius to Fahrenheit, or looks like you're given Fahrenheit, you want to know Celsius. So figure out first what formula you're going to want for that problem. Then we've got section 1.7, representing functions as rule and tables. So the first thing we need to be able to do is determine if a relation is a function or not. And then there are these 4 different representations of relations we had. So we have mapping diagrams, which is what we've got in example B. We've got a graph, in which case we should use our vertical line test as we're solving 11A. And then you might have a table, like we do in example C, or you might just be given a whole bunch of ordered pairs like we are in example D. We will go through those together, or we'll go through some of them, but remember you've got your green Post-it for this problem. Post-it. Where we went through for each of those 4 things and talked about how we would know if it's a function or not. So make sure you've got that Post-it handy as you study. And then lastly, also from section 1.7, you need to be able to identify domain and range of a function using proper notation. That part is critical. So remember, we use curly brackets and we write our numbers in order from least to greatest. So we are going to do 11A and 11B together. So 11A, we have a graph. And so in order to determine if the following relation is a function, we use our vertical line test. So we just draw as many vertical lines as we can. And if we have any vertical lines that pass through more than one point on our graph, it is not a function. So if we look at this point, or this vertical line we drew right here, it hits our graph twice. Not only that one, but we've got this vertical line here where it hits our graph here and here. So even if we just had one of those there, our answer would be no, it is not a function. And if I ask for a reason on the test, your reasoning would be it fails the vertical line test. And you are able to abbreviate that VLT. I know what that is. Then we've got example B that we're going to do together. You will be responsible for C and D for homework. In example B, we have a mapping diagram. When we've got a mapping diagram, we think about where our inputs take us to and what outputs they go to, or they go towards. So if we notice our number -3 just maps to -6, that's fine. 2 also maps to -6, and that's okay too. You can have multiple arrows going to the same number, but what we don't like about example B is this input of 3, because that input has 2 different outputs, 5 and 6. So I think on that green Post-it we said only 1 arrow coming from each input. Well, the input of 3 has 2 arrows going away from it, so this one is not a function. And you could say, for a reason, the input of 3 repeats or it has 2 outputs. And then for C and D, we've got a table and ordered pairs, and your job is to determine whether they are functions or not.